we're very lucky today to be joined by Bahram, who is the Senior Director of Subscription Acquisition and Digital Marketing at Sky Showtime. Bahram, over to you.
The holy trinity of measurement kind of at the moment seems to be, UMM or Unified Marketing Measurement. And this is where you combine sort of the macro top-down view of MMM to give you an overview of all your activity, regardless of whether it's on or offline. The limitations of this can be that it's typically much slower to get refreshes of your data, perhaps at best a monthly or quarterly, or in some cases this can be annual. And also the level of detail that it gives you can tend to be, as I mentioned, much more macro. So you can complement that from a digital perspective, at least, with some kind of multi-touch attribution solution. This is a much more micro, bottom-up way of measuring success. It can refresh more regularly. It can give you a much more kind of granular idea of what is and isn't working, which can work well. Obviously, the flip side of it is it's not going to take into account your offline activity. And then finally, regardless of whether you're using sort of platform data, whether you're using MMM, whether you're using NTA, whether you're using any kind of combination of those, I'd always encourage people to lean into incrementality testing to make sure that the changes they've made have really driven the results that you seem to be measuring. And that can be done on an audience level, it can be done on a geo level, or it can be done on a creative level in terms of sort of holdouts, etc. But yeah, from my point of view, definitely that would be the kind of the gold star to take the kind of the strengths of all of those and leverage them together. So the bad news is no silver bullet. But the good news is that could be a way to really refine your traditional marketing measurement. On the flip side, that's not going to be necessarily a viable approach for all businesses. It could be that it's too costly relative to the scale. It could be that it's too time consuming. It could be that you don't necessarily have the granularity of data available to kind of feed those models for success. So at the same time, there's nothing wrong with using your existing analytics platform if you've got it, or your platform data to also help inform some of your tests. With that in mind, I think lots of businesses absolutely recognize the importance of testing, which is obviously fantastic. But you just want to make sure that you are doing it in as robust a way as possible, that your data is as clean as possible, and that you are not interpreting outputs which are sort of inadvertently biased. So a good example there could be something which I've seen trip up a kind of number of people in the space, and it's easily done because things like social media platforms, programmatic platforms, paid search platforms, they can make it very simple to set up and activate against A/B tests. But really think about the actual test that you're running and what the appropriate measurement would be. So if I take the example of a landing page test, you don't want to be interpreting the results just as a combination of post-view and post-click converters. It's actually much more appropriate to only look at people who visited the landing page. So looking at those post-click conversions only, which sometimes cannot be considered by the platform that's running it, and it will just tell you landing page A was the winner because it got the most conversions overall. So just make sure you're kind of you're aware of what you're measuring against, and that you're sort of keeping the answers honest as it were.
Yeah, I'm just curious. You talked about perfect being the enemy of good. And I suppose, you were talking in the frame of sort of what tools and technologies, or, the way that you've got your operating system, let's say, set up. I'm just wondering, in terms of sort of the bigger picture, like what, there's perfection and there, kind of technical perfection, but what does good look like wider than just, the operating stuff in terms of the North Star. There'll obviously be different KPIs, but what is it as performance marketers that the goods that you're kind of aspiring towards, I suppose, if that makes sense?
Hopefully. Yes, I think my take on that is definitely the starting point, as I alluded to. So I won't dwell on it. Is working out what metrics are important to your business, and seeing how you can drive those in a positive way. So that can definitely be fueled by a sort of ongoing and robust test and learn plan. At the same time, I think less can be more on that front. There can be a big temptation to just test almost for the sake of testing, and that can be wrong for any number of reasons. So I think definitely a bit of a sense check up front. Really trying to evaluate the possible impact of those tests. A simple framework might be, how easy would this be to get off the ground? Can I be sort of self-sufficient in getting this active, or do I need buy-in from other teams in the business, other businesses, or do I need to bring on board additional sort of tech, etc.? And then also looking at what the realistic forecast for its impact is going to be. Is it high, medium, or low? And if it's only going to be low, it's probably should be less of a priority than something that's that's higher priority, and that could be things that are maybe scalable. So if you're working across multiple markets, is this something that is very specific to one market, or is it something that there's good reason to believe it could be successful across the board? So I think that can also be useful.
So Bahram, we've just got some quick fire questions for you now. The first of which is, which brand do you think is doing great marketing right now?
Sure. So I'm always a sucker for brands that can tap into sort of cultural moments that are relevant in an entertaining way. Historically, Paddy Power have been great at this, sort of with a very edgy sense of humor with their stunts and campaigns. But they've been a lot less on my radar recently, where I would actually put forward Itsu. And they have taken a very unorthodox approach. They have leaned into a couple of characters at the forefront of their campaigns who've gone viral for probably all the wrong reasons historically. So the Wheelstone Raider, who was a very aggressive football fan, and Ronnie Pickering, who was famous for sort of a road rage incident. So probably not marketing 101 of how to choose your influencers, but at the same time they've done it in a humorous way. So instead of saying you want some, I'll give it you, which was what the Wheelstone Raider was goading the other team with, he's going up to people in the street and saying, you want dim sum, I'll give it you. And they also kind of built on that further at Christmas, with him being out in the street with antlers on trying to give dim sum away. But amazingly enough, not too many people were into that. And Itsu just lead into it saying, when you're ready, new year, new you, for healthy eating, we'll still be here. So I kind of love that self-deprecating take. And I think these are characters that have gone viral previously, and these campaigns lend themselves to being shared organically in the social space as well.
100%. Yeah. The second one is best or worst advice that you've ever received.
Sure. So I think going back to my first job agency side, it was never get too high and never get too low. So try and keep a balance in terms of your sort of outlook, your way of communicating, etc. Many uses to this. If you're managing a team, you probably don't want to be too up and down. If you're talking about the way you communicate performance, you probably don't want to be putting yourself on the hook for everything, all the good and all the bad. You want to be reflective about where you are. And I think also in terms of your own sort of morale, try not to take things too personally. If you've done the best you can in any situation, be proud of yourself and move on.
Sage advice.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, the same person also gave me the worst advice I've ever had, which was never make big decisions on a Monday because you're already annoyed it's not the weekend. So yeah, pick your idols closely, and I think remember anyone can have a good idea and anyone can have a bad idea. I think regardless of sort of level or hierarchy or what someone does, take all advice at face value and stress test it.
100%. And then the last one is just a podcast, a Substack, a book, or anything really to recommend for performance teams or just, yeah, I mean, teams in general to level up.
Sure. So it's probably not directly related to marketing, but I feel like there are some key takeaways that could definitely apply to teams, whether in marketing or beyond. And the book is David Goggins' first book, Can't Hurt Me. So in terms of whistle stop overview, he was a guy from a sort of very deprived background, experienced lots of racism, was overweight, going nowhere, and then kind of on a whim decided to turn his life around, became an elite Navy SEAL, a sort of fitness machine, and is very sort of inspiring. Now within that, there were lots of kind of bits of advice that you could pick up. I would give a word of caution that you need to filter through some of his ways of being, which are just straight up crazy and would probably leave you in a situation where you're not having a very enjoyable life. You don't have friends or kind of family to lean on. But some of the things that I think apply across the board would be setting micro goals to ultimately get you towards a bigger goal. So in his case, he was very overweight. There was no way he could just run a marathon, but even if he set himself an objective, today I'm going to run 500 meters or I'm going to run a kilometer. And even if he then didn't run all the way, it was still a step further forward than if he hadn't tried at all. And I think that's very sage advice. And his other advice is really that your mind gives up before your body does. So even sometimes you can hit a mental barrier that you think is your limit. But if something's important, try and find a way to push through that. And in a lot of cases, you will be able to do that.
Cool, amazing. Well, yeah, been great having you on. Thanks again, Bahram.